Well, we are not live today, but we're recording this and I'll upload it later. Hello, Dr. John Rothwell. How are you today?
I'm doing well with Jannis Paulk.
I didn't say the letters.
You didn't.
I
So,
didn't.
good afternoon or good morning, everybody. My name's Dr. John Rothwell. I'm an advanced practice registered nurse, doctor of nursing practice, family nurse practitioner.
Yes, and you are my healthcare partner.
I am your healthcare partner.
You are. You are. And as always, I appreciate you being here to chat with me. You spend a lot of time doing this, and I appreciate it a lot. And I always surprise you with what our subject might be. You never know what I'm going to like pull out of the hat. I feel like a magician sometimes.
But I like it, and it's challenging. I know it made me very uncomfortable in the beginning, but change can be uncomfortable, and you can't change without some discomfort, right? And
Mhm.
so, no, so I'm very grateful that as I challenge my patients continue to challenge me too. And I think that makes me a better provider. It makes me a better people, right? And I want to be a good steward in our community. So I'm very grateful for you as well.
Well, thank you. So and that's a great segue into our conversation today because it's going to be a little uncomfortable for me. I'm going to be really vulnerable, but I think it's a great subject that people could potentially benefit from. But before we start, I always tell people that if they have questions that they'd like for me to ask you or discuss with you, to post them in the comments. And the last time we met, which has been a couple weeks ago because we had some conflicts, one of my very good friends asked a question that I feel like we should address. And Joe asked the question, did that shirt make him look fat? And I have thought about this question a lot, and I want to answer it. I know he wanted your answer, but I think that I'm qualified to answer it. So
Go for
my answer to Joe is it doesn't matter if the shirt makes you look fat. If it brings you joy, you should wear the darn thing.
Wear it.
Wear it.
Wear it. Now, my girls always tell me that, Dad, don't worry, Dad bods are in, so you're good to go.
Oh, well, see, that's good advice too. I like that advice. So see how positive we are? If it brings you joy, do it. Doesn't matter. The dad bod's in. Just the common theme is, be you. Just be you.
Yeah, I think it's very important people understand to be you and be comfortably being you. In John's world, I believe that we're all perfectly made our own way, and that's what makes us individuals. And so, while there are some things that we can do to improve our life, become our best you, I mean, it depends on no matter what your beliefs system involves, right? I'm sure we can change some of the things that we eat and stuff like that, but we can, this is our journey. This is your journey. This is my journey. And that's exactly what it is. So sometimes there are parts of the journey where we feel uncomfortable and we have to implement change, right? And so if you really truly want to know how you look in that shirt, look in the mirror and ask yourself, how do I feel wearing this shirt? And then if you feel good, then be good. And
Mhm.
if you don't feel good, make some change. Do
You
something different.
know, that's really good advice. And it's very profound. And I know that Joe's, when I see him, he's going to be like, that was a joke. Or you realize that was a joke. And yeah, I mean, it was a joke, but it's a valid point. And so what I want to talk about today is being vulnerable with your healthcare provider.
Mm.
And as we met yesterday. I had a visit. I had an issue that I needed to address, and we had a visit. And I've been partnered with you in my healthcare journey for goodness, 10 months now. 10 months, and it's gone quickly, but a lot has happened. And I have a somewhat complex healthcare history, and you kind of called me out on some things yesterday that made me gave me an epiphany. Relationships are difficult. you know, whether you're married or single, whether you work for somebody or you work for yourself, work relationships, personal relationships, dating, that's a subject for another day. It's horrendous. And there are so many opportunities for miscommunications and misunderstandings and good intentions. My grandmother always said good intentions are paved the road to hell. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and she was right, you know. And we mess up our relationships so much by not communicating well, and where that comes from, I've really come to realize, is fear.
Mm.
It comes out of fear, but I never realized that I was manifesting that in my healthcare relationships until yesterday. And I count myself so blessed and so lucky that I have a healthcare partner that has gently over time helped me see that if I'm going to have a healthy relationship with my healthcare partner, that I have to participate. And beyond the fear, for myself personally, I've had situations where I had a healthcare provider that didn't take me seriously, that didn't listen to me. And so I didn't even realize it, but over time I caught myself holding back. A lot of times I'll self-diagnose instead of going to the doctor because it's safer. It's safer for me to do that because I don't have to worry about the judgment or trying to convince my healthcare provider that, this is really what's going on. And I'm not just Dr. Googling it, which I do sometimes. We all do, But so all that being said, I have had the luxury of 10 months of building a relationship with you that there's a foundation of trust. And I trust you, and you don't judge me. Every time I see you, I share something a little new that you didn't know before that, adds up to, oh, so that's why you did this, and oh, that's why you did that. And it's somewhat humorous now, but if you had pushed me in the beginning, we probably wouldn't be as comfortable. I wouldn't be as comfortable as I am now. I've never had the luxury of having the healthcare provider that I feel this comfortable with. So my question to you, and this is a difficult question, I don't know if you'll be able to really answer it or not. What should somebody do that is in a situation where they don't feel that trust? If you could go back to my very first visit with you, like what would your advice to me have been? Knowing now, you didn't know then that I had this huge pile of stuff over here that I was going to dole out to you a little at a time over 10 months. Well, is there any advice you would have given me to better communicate with you in order to help myself? Or
I think that's a great question. And when I talk with our team, with Nola and Maddie, I talk about the importance of meeting your patients where they're at.
yeah, what does that mean?
And
Explain what that means.
what that means to me is, first and foremost, you have to listen. Everybody deserves to be heard. And in traditional healthcare, we're pushed so quickly to see X number of patients so fast that people, nobody's listening.
Absolutely.
Right? They go in, they tell their signs and symptoms, and they get a pill, and they're out the door. Sometimes you have a better provider who spends a little bit more time with you to find out what's going on in your life and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, we're left to Dr. Google. We're left to doing a search on our own when it comes to change in lifestyle, or maybe a health coach, or this kind of coach, or our friends. Right? We're going to our friends for or advice because they may have experienced something similar. And, in our practice at Island Direct Primary Care, our number one goal is to work for you, right? Nobody else. And so everybody deserves to be heard. So in order to be heard, we have to spend a lot of time listening. And as you listen, you have to ask the right questions. And by asking the right questions, you kind of get an idea of where your patient is in that moment. And in nursing, and so I'm a adjunct professor for the doctorate program at University of Central Florida. And we have a course in health promotions, and we talk about motivational interviewing and these kind of things. And so we're actually, some of it's training. I think some of it's just who we are. It comes naturally. Nursing is one of the most trustworthy professions in the world. And I love that about being a registered nurse first, and then going to nurse practitioner school and getting the medical knowledge afterwards, because we're traditionally trained in caring. And so with that comes, empathy and compassion and patience, and those attributes that you need and that we want in our partners, whether our partner's a friend or a friend with benefits. It's, it means that, you have to be able to listen, and so that we can communicate. So with you, for example, while you were very much on your guard when we first met, you threw up, in softball, you threw up the meatball pitch was about mold toxicity, and you threw it up to see what my response was.
Yeah.
And I didn't bite. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more. And so, not that when we discuss mold toxicity, sometimes out of here, I'm like, I'm a little intimidated because some of that is new. And as you know, I'm going down the rabbit hole with you, and that's a topic for another discussion. But
It is. It's a huge subject.
yeah, we listen, and you have to listen. And once you listen, then you can find out where your patients are. And our patients, we have well over 230 patients now. I'm in negotiating with some businesses that have 20, 40, 200 employees to look to do direct primary care, to provide them this high level of service, this personalized service, where the provider's working for them, right? And so we meet everybody where they're at. And so in order to do that, you have to listen.
Well, I am happy that my spot is secured. And it's been unexpected because I did, when I sought out to work with you, establish a relationship with you as my primary care provider, I was sick, and I had something, whether it was the flu or COVID or whatever it was. I was very, very sick and I needed care, and I knew I didn't want to just go to the hospital or MedFast or something. I wanted to establish a relationship. And so my expectation was, and it's just so interesting to me because I'm telling you, I had an epiphany. Like all of these things just came together in my mind last night. I was thinking about it. And my expectation of what this was going to be is far different than what it has become. Because, you talk about the 5 pillars of health. And this is all so different than what we're accustomed to in healthcare and what we expect to happen. And so our behavior is not always conducive to a good outcome, because I expected if I got sick with, if I had the flu or kidney infection or kidney stone, all of those things have happened, I could go see you and you would write me a prescription or give me advice or get testing done. And that was it. That was all I expected out of this. And what I've gotten is so, so, so much more, because you always talk about the 5 pillars of health. And I really do listen. It doesn't always seem like I listen, but I do. And every time that I meet with you, every time that I have a conversation with you in a doctor's visit or a virtual visit or one of these videos, I understand a little more about the 5 pillars of health and how it really, really is a thing. Because if you're not hitting all 5 of those, then you're not rounded in your health. You're not good. And it's interesting, but I think there are a lot of people, for myself personally in the past, this is me being vulnerable again. I can't believe I'm going to say this publicly, but I am, because it's where I'm at. But so we build up these walls, these protective mechanisms, defense mechanisms, and we recognize that we do that in our personal lives, our relationships with our significant other or our children or, whoever, in our work relationships, if we have, an adversarial relationship with a coworker or a boss or a client. But we don't think about, I haven't, that we do the same thing in our healthcare environment. And because I've had negative situations with healthcare providers in the past, and I think most people have, I can be a little defensive, maybe a lot defensive sometimes. I can be a little combative. I have a very strong personality. I like to think that I'm kind and sensitive and considerate and all those things. But I've had some situations, where I have to look back and go, ooh, I could have handled that better. And so we set ourselves up sometimes for a not good outcome because of our own stuff, the baggage that we bring to healthcare. All right, so this is a difficult question. I'm gonna recognize it before I ask it, okay? So say that I'm not a patient of yours. I'm in a traditional, insurance, healthcare environment. I go see my primary care doctor when I get sick. I see specialists, but nobody's listening to me. Let's say I have an autoimmune issue or, some kind of a chronic health issue that keeps me wanting healthcare or actually in a healthcare environment, and it's not good. Which I was in that position myself several years ago. I'm not anymore, thank God. But so what would your advice be to somebody who, beyond the obvious, which is come see you before you don't have space? I mean, that's obvious. If you live in Brevard County and you're not a patient of Dr. John Rothwell, I'm sorry. But beyond that obvious thing, what would your advice be to make their healthcare relationships better? If someone that they're working with doesn't have the same characteristics that you have, they're not listening, they're not. One of my neighbors, wonderful man, I'm trying to get him to come see you because he really needs somebody to listen to him. He told me that he saw a doctor and he wrote down 4 things he wanted to talk to the doctor about. What?
The doctor said, pick one.
No, listen, it's even worse than that. Listen to what happened. So he goes in, wonderful man. This gentleman, he's just wonderful. Very intelligent, very eloquent. So he goes in and he tells him the one thing, the first thing. And the doctor says, okay, so have you had that before? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, it looks like you have it again. And he put his hand on the doorknob. And he said, well, I have 3 more things. And he read him off. And he said, have you had those before? And he said, yes. And he said, well, it looks like you have them again. And out the door he went. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. For me, that would be the last time I visited that particular provider. But what do you do? I mean, you just jump from one to another to another. I mean, what's the best thing to do?
So there's a couple things here. One is there's a number of people that have been seeing the same healthcare provider for many, many years. And so they do have a relationship, some closer than others. A lot of times you spend the, 10 minutes catching up on what the previous year was like. it's a physical, it's really not a sick visit, nothing abnormal's happened. And then you just kind of go on, hey, can I get my labs done and that kind of thing? And it's like, sure. And then you get a note card saying that your labs were in the normal range, and you see them
Yeah.
again the following year. And in some cases you go see them a little bit more frequently, that depending on age or past medical history, and you have a relationship, and so there's a little bit of hearing, but not a lot of listening. I find it quite a bit with my hypothyroid patients, particularly whether they're autoimmune or not, and that they go in, well, your numbers are normal, and they're on X dose of thyroid medication, and the patient goes, okay, but why am I still so tired?
Hmm.
Or why is my hair thinning? Or okay, why can't I lose any weight? And the doctor's like, well, just keep taking your medicine, your numbers are normal. Or they might go, well, I'll increase your dose and we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And so we're using pharmacology to treat a symptom in that approach versus looking at root cause. And to be honest with you, in the providers that I know, whether nurse practitioner or medical doctor, doctor of osteopathic, they're good people. They really are.
Yeah, I agree.
And and they've been trained a certain way. And that's part of the American healthcare system issue, is that we have this many people, and in order for you to make a buck, to cover your bills, et cetera, to pay your student loans. You know, I'm gonna go out there. When I got $200,000 of student loans, right, for a nurse practitioner, that's not even an MD. MD's half a million in some cases.
Yeah.
You want to, you got to repay that, and insurance companies. And to be honest, while the intent is maybe there, um, that's the villain
I
in this
agree.
situation. And so the insurance company says, look, the fair price is $100, but we're going to give you $50.
Yeah.
Well, $50 doesn't cover my expenses, right? And so I got to see $50 times four to cover that hour. If you throw in your staff and your building and all the other stuff that comes with it, and then make your own living to pay back your student loans and make a fair living as a master's or doctorally prepared professional, and so that takes a while doing that. So the average time that a primary care provider gets to spend with you, 7 to 13 minutes. And so what happens often is, many times they push you off. Okay, that's an endocrine system, I'll refer you to the endocrinologist. Okay, that's a lung issue, I'm gonna pass you on to the pulmonologist. That's a cardiology issue, I'm gonna pass you on to the cardiologist. And in many cases, that provider was trained to do those things, and they can get to the root cause of it. It's when it gets so bad because it's been ignored that you need to go to see the specialist. And even then, you go to see the specialist shouldn't be necessarily maintaining all that stuff for you. Your primary care is, but nobody talks, right? Nobody listens. And so that's where it all starts. So what would I tell them? Um, it never hurts to start with the truth. If you go to a new primary care provider, you go in there and you say, listen, I want to be your best patient. And in order to be your best patient, I need your help. And all my experiences with the primary care provider haven't always been great. So I'm looking for a great primary care provider. So, how can we work together so that I can be the healthiest I've ever been, so I can enjoy the life that I deserve? And that's a whole different thing, right? So this is a partnership. If you read any medical journal, any nursing journal, any health coaching journal, I was talking to one of my doctorate students last night, and he said the biggest challenge he's having, and he's trying to open up a direct primary care practice in another city. And he goes, the biggest problem that I have, John, is my patients owning their care.
I can see that.
And I said, well, let's chat, because I think the biggest problem is you not letting them own their care.
Oh, interesting. That's
So,
interesting. So,
um,
so the bottom line is, this is my epiphany, and it's even, it's even becoming more clear in this conversation, is, the root of everything is communication and compromise. Because as you were talking about, the challenges that healthcare providers are dealing with, as you started talking about that, I wanted to interject and I didn't, but I get
thanks
brownie
for
points for
listening.
that because I'm terrible about stopping you and interrupting you. I apologize. Um, I'm working on that. But, considering the other person's position as well and the challenges that they're dealing with is important too, because they, like you said, they're against the wall, behind the eight ball, if you will, um, trying to do the things that they have to do. And after a while, it's got to be exhausting, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally exhausting for them, all the things that they have to do. I am a big fan of direct primary care, the concept, the business model, the healthcare model of direct primary care. Something that I became familiar with actually several years ago in Georgia. It's fairly common, I think more common in Georgia maybe than it is in Florida. But I've been a fan of it for a while. I didn't realize how much I was going to love it, though, until I became your biggest fan. You're not paying me nearly enough to say all these nice things to you. No, I'm just kidding. You're not paying me at all. I truly, truly am a loyal fan and am so thankful for you, really.
Well, you're welcome. And it's mutually, the respect is there. I really appreciate you seeking me and asking me to come on these little weekly escapades with you. Some of them actually make me vulnerable as well. And, you know, I don't know. I'm going against the grain. I believe that our community, members in our community, deserve it. And, it's different, but it feels right. And I truly believe that um, the patient is the most important part in this journey. And so I've created a model that allows me to pay the bills. At the same time, when you see one patient an hour, we get to hit on it and talk about a lot of things, right?
Yeah,
And
we do.
sometimes more, sometimes less. It just depends. And then there's plenty of learning and stuff for me to do. And you know, and to kind of hit back real quick before we end this,
Yeah.
you were you were talking about the five pillars of health, and I want to remind people that you know sometimes you hit on all five, sometimes we hit two or three. So the five pillars being physical, mental, emotional, financial, and spiritual wellness. And so when we talk about those five things, some days, some are stronger than others. What's interesting is I'm reading a book right now called The Body Keeps Score.
Oh,
And it's
that
about the
sounds interesting.
brain, mind, and body, and in the healing of trauma, right? And so um, I have some personal things going on in my own life, in my own household, um, where there's a substantial amount of trauma involved. and so the member of my family is self-medicating, and so when we sit down and we talk, and it's often in a circle, because the hurt and the pain is so real that if they break that circle and they have to go back and heal, they have to go back to that trauma. um, there's that fear, even though
Absolutely.
it's in the past.
Mhm.
But the hurt is so great and the fear is so great that you just don't want to face it. And the body keeps score of that, which means, from a physical perspective, you have cortisol levels, you have other things going in your body that continue to raise stressors, which then in turn causes weight gain, which it causes fatigue, which then causes brain fog and all these things. So it's this vicious cycle. So now you actually have a physical, mental, and emotional ailment, right? And then, depending on what you believe spiritually, it's why me?
Yeah.
God, why me? Right? Or, universe, why me? Or energy, why me? I mean, you get my point. It's just like, why do I feel this way? Why am I not grounded? Right? Because if you believe in the energies and the power of the universe, and it's just like you don't feel grounded right now, and it's just like, well, why? Is because we're afraid. Fear is the root of all evil.
It really is. Fear. Oh gosh, that's a whole nother segment. That's a whole nother conversation, really. It is. And I'm just proud of myself that we got through this and I didn't cry. I thought I was I kind of tempered it a little bit before we started, but it really is, it's a very raw subject, being vulnerable and communicating and giving grace and accepting grace, and that applies to all your relationships, all of them, healthcare included. And that was a real epiphany for me. So I hope if anyone is watching this that has had challenges with their healthcare relationships in the past, that it's been a little bit insightful. And I appreciate you talking with me about it and exploring me and pushing me a little bit, because it helps me in all areas of my life. And that's all we can hope for, right?
One day at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We're going to sign off now. If you want to get in touch with Dr. Rothwell, you can do that by sending him an email at john@islanddpc.com. See,
Yep,
I got that.
you did.
And of course, his website is islanddpc.com. And if you are not in Brevard County and you want to explore the concept of direct primary care, which I am a huge fan of, just Google it, direct primary care, and see if there's a provider in your area, because it
Yeah,
is definitely a worthwhile model. I think, I hope that the healthcare industry continues to move in that direction and it becomes more widely known and accepted and embraced for the wonderful gift that it is. So,
yeah. I have patients in Volusia County, Orange County, Indian River County,
nice.
Martin County. So they're driving an hour, hour and a half away, because once we get to know each other, we do a lot virtually.
Yeah.
There's a dpcfrontier.com actually has a map. So you can click on that map and find a direct primary care provider near you. So
What's the web address again?
dpcfrontier.com.
UPC Frontier. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And so there's a map there.
traveling to see a good healthcare provider is not unusual. I've been living in Brevard County for 3.5 years, and on a side subject, for 2 years I drove to Georgia to get my hair done. So 5 hours. So if I'll drive 5 hours to get my hair done, I'll drive. And I drove 5 hours to see my doctor. I have a trusted doctor in South Georgia, and I would still go see her if I needed her specialty. I would go see her. So I get that. It's worth it. And and sometimes just because of the nature of our relationship, we talk on a regular basis, through this and but sometimes you don't need to I don't have to talk to you all the time. You'd miss me if I didn't. Okay, that's enough. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for watching. And maybe next time I'll be able to get the live to work and we can have some live interaction. But I am going to post this to YouTube and Facebook. And thank you again. And I'll see you next week, Dr. John.
Thanks so much, Jannis. Have a blessed week.
Thank you. You too.